Alright, Kaia, let's take a look at your essay. So, you do slip into the second person here, and your hook. And I want to talk about this for a second. How do you believe that media helps spread the news of not only true information, but also false information? This is a little bit weird, and I'm not sure exactly how you're phrasing it. Uh, it's just very awkwardly worded because I'm not sure what you're trying to get across. So let me think of you referencing me. How do I believe that the media helps spread the news of not only true information, but also false information? Which is, I don't want to say accusatory, but how can I believe that it also spreads false information? That's the way you have it worded, because when you say not only this but also this, and how can you believe that, that's kind of how it's being referenced. But as it looks like with the rest of your essay, because you're talking about media being more potent than human nature in creating mass hysteria, this is worded a little bit awkwardly, so be mindful of that. And then I like how you transgress mass hysteria and explain it. The only thing I'm a little confused is this section right here that I've highlighted with my cursor. Which, by the way, as I'm going through this, I did double space this, even though we didn't talk about Emily Foreman. I did double space it so it's easier for me to kind of go through what you got. So a lot of you, I'm noticing, are referencing the Crucible right in the intro, which is fine. I just don't know why you're all doing it in this particular way. This is an example of mass hysteria. And your introduction doesn't need to have specific examples, and it really shouldn't. It should just build on the information of this, how media functions, into media being more potent. And the problem with you referencing this in particular is this does nothing to support your claim. You're like, media is more potent, and then here's the Crucible, these people are accused of witchcraft, and this is mass hysteria. A more precise way to say it would be, mass hysteria is seen in Arthur Miller's The Crucible as women are consistently accused of witchcraft. But the problem with that is we don't quite have media at that time, so I'm not sure how this is benefiting you. But I think your thesis right here is good. So even though you mentioned earlier, there we go, so I can see it better. Even though you mentioned earlier what your thesis is, this gives more context to what it is. You have, and my dictionary needs to go away, you give more context to it about these are the reasons about why media is more potent in it, which is good. So overall, your introduction has not the greatest hook, but a good thesis and the way that it's tied, and I'm just not sure why the Crucible is thrown in right there. So as we move on to your first body paragraph, you actually have a really interesting thing right here. Without the false information, there would be nothing to create mass hysteria cases. Maybe get rid of cases, I don't think you necessarily need it. But you have an interesting perspective on false information and how that is a perpetrator of mass hysteria, and then media perpetuates it by spreading it quicker. However, we need to talk about your transitions a little bit. If we look at... No, that's not going to work. Give me 1 second. Sorry, as I'm recording this, people are vacuuming outside my classroom, and I don't know if you can hear it, and I can't check to see if the mic is picking up on it. So anyways, let's hope and pray that that is not what is going on. But anyways, so you start talking about the internet being false and unreliable, which this is fine, and I think you have good things. Media convinces people to the point where they will be gullible enough to believe it. This all is fine, because I think you have some good analysis here. People are convinced by false information, which maybe you want to give some more fluff to that. What about the false information gets them going? Maybe they have an objective, because even if you look at the Martians are coming, I think there's a few reasons why people are convinced by the false information. There's a few different ways. You do have some spacing concerns right here. That's the only grammar thing I'm noticing so far. But anyways, what I'm seeing is you have this example of the radio show, but you spend enough time talking about online news sources, and that's not what the media was for The Martians Are Coming. So maybe instead of focusing on the internet right here, just say that people may believe things through media, and maybe even if you just specify, like right now we live in a time of social media where we get that, but even before we had this big push with online sources. This was happening in radio and broadcasting. I think that would make it better, but it's just a little bit awkward because you start the paragraph with the internet and then you transition into the radio, which doesn't quite work. So that paragraph is okay. The style is good. You have some analysis in there. I think you may want to introduce this a little bit more. Maybe you can get rid of some sentences here, because the main thing with argumentative essays is to have analysis based on the examples. And I think I could see that a little bit higher up, but that is okay for now. And then as we move on to your next body paragraph, topic of sentence is pretty good. Media spreads information rapidly. And then right here, as I'm seeing it, connect the media greatly influences mass hysteria, and without the media, there would not be as much of it. One of the best things, I will be very honest with you, this works a lot in history writing, but this can be done with an argumentative paper as well. The best authors, all you can do is read their topic sentence, the first sentence or the first two sentences, and then read the last one or two, and if it's written well enough, you will be able to know what their paper is about. So if I look at yours so far, the media spreads many false and untrue statements. Without the false information, there would be nothing to create mass hysteria cases. The media spreads information rapidly. The media greatly influences mass hysteria, and without the media, there would not be as much of it. So this is some analytical components, and then in the middle would obviously be the evidence and the analytical stuff. So I just want to say that is a good thing that I'm going to commend you on right there. So with that being said, we still need to talk about what's in the crux of it, because even though that will give you at least the contents of what each paragraph will be about so you can reference it, we still want to make sure your evidence is sound. So that being said, you have a typo here. I don't know if that's something that Google Docs would catch right away. If I do, crap, that's not what I wanted. Tools, spelling, spell check. That's right, no spelling suggestions. But what you could do, I don't know if it'll work on the Chromebooks I don't know if this will work on the Chromebooks at school, but I have this add-on called Language Tool, which will check your essay. Excuse me. And this is going to bring up a lot more. I mean, your name is spelled right, but it'll talk about some ways to improve your writing, progressive form, and that's fine how it is. But I'll give you a few things. You have whatever. Oh, apparently I missed where you need a comma. Kaia needs a comma. But anyways, this will give you a lot of different things to pay attention to. Let me pull that up. Alright, so, anyways, with that being said, where was I? Here we go. Totally forgot everything I was just talking about. So whatever I was saying, because honestly, I forgot. I am so sorry. And I'm 8 minutes in. I don't know how to go back. So anyways, this essay or this paragraph is really good because it talks about how things can go quickly and how, what I think is really interesting is you use this example, even though this is not the article title, it's like a subtitle for it. And this is one of the things Language Tool talked about, how a girl's apostrophe S, you need the apostrophe S, entire body started to shake in gross tens, and it keeps happening. Typo there. I like how you use this where you talked about the not internet, but information being spread with this global whatever, and then you use this example about how information spreads and how relating it back to media and how it spreads it even quicker. So this is a way of it being done right, where even if there's components of human nature, the speed of it with media is really what perpetrates it. So that is good. Moving on to your next body paragraph. Others may argue that human nature is just what causes mass hysteria. I don't like the word just. I think a lot of you overuse it, so I would avoid doing it. But good topic sentence, and even with how you end it here, media is more potent in creating mass hysteria due to the fact that media tries to make others believe false information. So pretty good topic sentence. I can see you're gonna, not topic sentence, ending sentence, so I can see how this will transition. So you do a pretty good job at bringing up evidence and some analysis with what the opposition says. You got a few typos here and there, so be mindful of that. The medium, what I would be careful, you need a specific, for this paragraph to work, you need to, give me 1 second, I'm writing this on your rubric, needs specific detail. You need some specific detail to refute this. And I can think of a personal, not personal, but a good way of doing this. Because you talk about media being more potent in creating it because others will believe it through the media and can get all these other things and whatever. What I always tell students as they write, and anyone who writes, sometimes your own opinion is not the easiest way to write an essay. And whatever your perspective is on it politically, using that Clinton article would be a great thing to throw in here about how media worked in that way. Or even if you used an outside source, I would have been fine with that if you talked about something else with whatever it is. But just using that evidence in those articles to bring that evidence in, you need a specific evidence here example here because you do talk all these things about how they bend the truth and whatever, so this is the human nature aspect. But if you really want to show that the media makes it better, you need to show that contrast of here's what happened before media and here's what happened after. So alright, so in your conclusion, this is pretty good. You have your thesis to restate it. And then I think this is a good quote to integrate. Maybe not necessarily in the... Sometimes it's hard with the conclusion. You don't always want to put quotes in there, but it's fine as it works here. I'm not sure what you're trying to say here. There have been cases where people lied or changed their stories. I don't think that's necessary. I think if you get rid of that and just have this following, it will be okay. And then when you say the shows that the media creates more cases involving mass hysteria, I don't think this is quite what you said in your essay, because I don't think you necessarily said that it creates more cases involving mass hysteria, but that it's just easier and it's more potent in doing so because it reaches people quicker. So think about the verbiage there. And then I'm going to be honest, I do not like how you ended the essay. The world would be so much different today if we did not have the technology we have. Endings like this, the world would be so much different, aren't the greatest ways to end your paper because it's a little vague. Hold on, give me 1 second. I'm just writing some things. It's just a little bit vague, and it would be so much different. And I was talking about this with some other essays, like the world already existed without the technology. So yes, it's very different, but why is that relative to mass hysteria? Leave something else that's worded a little bit better, even if it's something like just about how mass hysteria does it, and maybe even comparing like Salem witch trials. Like, imagine what Salem would have looked like if we had the media we did now, something like that. So overall, Kaia, your paper is pretty good. Hook could be improved, but your thesis is okay. I think there's a few things you need to get rid of here and there. But other than that, and aside from just double checking your paper and proofreading it, I think you are at a good start. A good paper with what you have so far.